So this is Tucker Carlson getting interviewed, and usually he's the one doing the interviewing, so it's interesting seeing it the other way around. And since he has had contact directly with Trump during the second term, and more than most people, this is going to be interesting.
Tucker, absolute pleasure. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're always great. I don't know how you do it. A lot of people are watching the news. They wake up to Trump's posts. They find out about the bombing that happened yesterday. And then you tell me that with a big smile on your face that you went trout fishing. So I envy that peace you have in there during these times.
I get up early.
Well, you live in Dubai, Mary. There's no trouts over there, and it's not the calmest area of the world. Somewhere where you can trout fish in the United States, that's a lot calmer. I think it's Maine that Tucker lives. I forget.
Early every day, and I get outside. First thing I do is I take my dogs out, I build my sauna fire, and I try to spend some time outside. And then, I'm miserable for the rest of the day, but for that period, I really feel elevated and happy. So I think it's important to get away. It's important for me to get away from electronics on the screen, because that will create a lot of darkness in you.
Yeah. I spoke to, we were just talking about your brother earlier, one of the nicest people I've spoken to. And when we had that conversation, he was just so upset at how things are going. The promises made.
I play gacha games as my way to unwind.
Before Trump became president and where we are today. And you've done an incredible job trying to shed light on why it happened. Not sure if you actually have the answer. Do you think you know exactly why we are? Okay.
I don't have the answer. I was thinking about it this morning. Voting for Trump was not a vote for a Republican. It was a vote against the system. Trump became...
Exactly. That was my position. It wasn't a vote for Trump. It was a vote against system. Every time I voted for him, it's not because I love the way Trump behaves or... Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, we could have someone like Tucker Carlson on the ticket, not instead of Trump. But if the alternative is Trump or the corrupt establishment, it's going to be Trump.
I'm a Republican. He wasn't. But it was really a vote for an option to the two parties, which are similar on the questions, on the big questions that matter, not on trans rights, but on the...
Yeah, both parties were basically pro illegal immigration, pro outsourcing, pro these trade agreements that were terrible for America, etc. And Trump was the first candidate that was not part of the uniparty.
Economy and foreign policy, they're identical. And they're out of sync with what
both parties were pro-Israel.
Most people want in this country. So the whole idea of Trump was, here you get an option. You can vote for someone who's different from the other two parties, who's effectively a third-party candidate. He's going to take on and reform the system. He's going to drain the swamp.
And on that issue, Trump was never... Yeah, he was with the establishment on that one issue, but at least he didn't start any wars during his first term.
And he was tough enough to do it. I mean, I was thinking this morning, I spoke to Trump 2 summers ago in the car. He called me on the way to get arrested to get fingerprinted and mugshot taken. And it was a pretty heavy moment in the life of any 78-year-old man. And I said, how are you doing? And he said,
Yeah, that was terrible. That for a bullshit reason, they hit him with how many felonies?
Great. I said, you're great. You're going to get arrested. You're great. And he goes, I've got no choice. So I'm going to be great. That's a tough man. That's a tough man who can say something like that. Like, he is, in some ways, Trump is frivolous and narcissistic and silly and absurd, really. But in other ways, and I've personally seen them, he is a strong person. And I think everyone who voted for him sensed that and believed that he was strong enough to take on and not tear down the system necessarily, but move it in the direction of what the majority of the public wanted.
And he has done that in his first term and his second term. The publishing the Epstein files, that didn't happen under Biden. That happened under Trump. No matter how Republicans and conservatives are unhappy about how it happens and think there still might be more hidden, which might very well be the case. What we got confirmed Pizzagate, and that's a huge improvement to the situation before. And what we've learned about the SPLC and funding right-wing terror, that was also hugely valuable. Happened under the Trump administration, and the border is now closed, or absolutely closed compared to what was happening under Biden, and there are actual deportations happening. So yes, it is moving in the right direction. The problem is internationally, they're not so much.
And the fact that he wound up joining the system and becoming, in effect, identical to, pick someone, Chuck Schumer, identical on the big questions, the economy and foreign policy, is so shocking. It's more than a betrayal. It's actually...
Well, I will give credit to one place internationally is we are no longer funding Ukraine. and we're pretty much no longer even giving them weapons. So we're not solving it. We're still providing them intelligence, the CIA, and covertly we're still propping Ukraine up. But the level of support is down hugely from under Biden. And that is a positive. And that happened because we elected Trump. If it had been Kamala Harris, we would still be providing billions to Ukraine.
Actually a sign that the system can't be reformed and that we're going to continue to get things that we don't want at our expense. And the country will continue to get worse. But even more fundamental than that, that there will be no democracy. There's no lever by which you can influence what the government does. And that's a profound moment for everybody. It's a scary moment. It's the kind of moment that causes revolutions, which I just want to be clear, I don't want. I hate violence. But you could get violence because when people understand that there's no way for them to non-violently change the system, well, that's where they go. So I'm still trying to figure out how this happened and what it means. But there's no question even now that this is the biggest thing that's ever happened in my life politically.
Yeah.
So far, unfortunately, there'll be something bigger in the future.
Joe Kent, who you had on the show, and we speak. He was on yesterday. We speak on a regular basis, and he's the one that got me thinking seriously about the importance of Butler being shot in the ear, being millimeters away from just having your life ended. And the bizarre thing is that Trump never brings it up. He brings up the 2020 elections. He brings up everything political, but never brings up the
And he shut down the investigation into Butler. It's insane.
fact that he was almost killed.
Batshit insane.
And Joe's belief is that the president could be under duress. And Buckley, your brother, we spoke about the same thing as well. The more this goes on, and seeing the posts today, now that caught me by surprise, talking again about capturing Cargill and talking again about continuing to bomb Iran, I start to think of those theories again, that maybe it is something more sinister than what I initially thought.
I would say, personally, I believe duress, as in threats of death to him and his family, is more likely than Epstein blackmail. Just saying, to me personally, if it's something... And I think it's just also the deep state still has huge amount of influence. For example, we know that Trump watches like 3 hours of Fox News a day. And that's 3 hours that he's exposed to whatever the deep state wants. Like Murdoch is very much part of the deep state, the owner of Fox News, the one who fired Tucker. So Trump is still propagandized hugely by the deep state. That's probably why he thought this war would be over in 3 days.
Well, I mean, we can confirm that. The president is under duress. He had no natural desire to launch a regime change war against Iran. He understood the risks perfectly well. He feared those risks. He told me that. And he did it anyway. So he did it against his will. That tells you a couple of different things. One, that there is some, yes, sinister mechanism by which the president of the United States was forced to do something he didn't want to do. But it also tells you that the president of the United States, whoever it is, Trump or the presidents that preceded him.
Yeah, I believe it's a combination of pressure and trickery. The fact that Trump was actually telling the UK Prime Minister that it would be over in 3 days means he did believe that. But he must have known there was still huge risks in attacking Iran. And so, yes, there must have also been huge pressure.
Don't really run the country, that they have a boss. And again, that's the kind of realization that leads to societal collapse and revolution. Once people realize the system itself is fake, not just that bad people are running the system, but the system itself isn't what it claims to be, then you're kind of shaking the foundations of the society. So I don't know. I know that about Butler. I know that
there's also, I mentioned this a little earlier, it's also a possibility that he's been warned. It's not threats against himself. It might be threats against, like Secretary of Treasury says, the financial system is on the verge of collapse. We need X, Y, Z to prevent that. And then he, in order to not be the president that oversees the collapse of the financial system, he helps. And that is, I think of that more in terms of how he's manipulating the market and how he's always promising a deal. And there's this obvious insider trading going on with that. I think that I'm fairly certain that is at prompting of the Secretary of the Treasury, in terms of, he tells Trump, we need this to prevent banks from going under. And Trump complies with those types of things because he's giving dire warnings by the Secretary of Treasury of what could go on in derivative markets, etc. if Trump doesn't help manage the market. Because we've reached that point in the United States where our financial market needs a ton of manipulation just to keep them afloat.
Trump shut down the investigation into Butler. That is a fact. Dan Bongino told me that when he worked at the FBI. And Dan Bongino himself was terrified when I spoke to him in December. It's such a long, boring story, but basically I came into possession, I beg your pardon, accidentally came into possession of a lot of the social media posts that we were told didn't exist, that were posted by Thomas Crooks in the months and years before the shooting. And I was amazed that the FBI had lied about this. So I called Kash Patel, and I later called Dan Bongino, and I said, what is this? I'm not attacking you. It was the previous FBI administration that did this. It was Chris Wray, but what is this? And Dan Bongino became hysterical with me on the phone. I've known Dan a long time, for many years, and always gotten along with him. Whatever his faults, nice guy, certainly very nice to me. I never had
It's not just Trump. It might be everyone in the administration that's under huge pressure.
a problem with Dan ever. And that problem began when I brought this information to his attention, and he became a different person. He was clearly terrified. I didn't get it at first, but he was hysterical. And ultimately, after a long series of
Yeah, hysterical. I mean, if he's hysterical over something like this, it means he was under pressure. And that pressure is not coming from Trump, I don't think. People aren't terrified because of Trump.
text exchanges, which I still have, and phone conversations, he said, look, take it up with Trump. He's the one who shut down the investigation. And that was, I think, the first or second week of December. I think it was the beginning of the second week of December. I had it written down. But that was the moment when I realized, oh, wow, there's no good explanation for shutting down an investigation into your own attempted murder. Like, this is not what we've been
Yeah. Why would you shut down the investigation into your own attempted murder?
told it was.
That is absolutely insane.
When you said Trump feared,
The only reason you do that is who is behind it. They're like, maybe you've even talked to them, communicated with them, and who is responsible. So why bother looking into it? It would just make things more complicated.
those risks, he told you that. What risks do you think he was referring to? What was he fearing?
He was responding to my description of what I thought the risks were, and they were in order that if you achieved your goal and regime changed Iran, if you took out the leadership of Iran and the country collapsed into some kind of ethnic civil war, because it's only barely 50% Persian, there's a lot going on there. It could be an unstable country. If you did to Iran what we're trying to do to Russia, would that be a win? No, because the weapon stockpiles would fall into the hands of people you couldn't control. You would have a refugee crisis that would further destroy Europe. You would have a lot of downstream effects. You would also, and I said this to Trump, inevitably get a lot of direct attacks on your 6 Gulf state allies on the other side of the Persian Gulf, who are our main allies in the region. And they can't defend themselves, and we have reached the limit of our ability to defend them. And in the end, the United States could lose a lot of influence, if not its physical presence, in the Middle East. And places like UAE and Qatar and Saudi, which are real allies and have invested trillions in foreign direct investment in the United States, those countries could be wrecked. And so there's kind of no upside in doing this. And then, of course, the Strait of Hormuz would be shut. By definition, it would be shut, and a fifth of the world's oil and at least as much natural gas and sulfur and all these different petrochemicals and commodities the world needs.
It was obvious. You go back to my videos before the Iran war started. I was warning about all this too. Then all the commentators I watch knew all this. People in the U.S. government knew all this. Trump knew all this, like Tucker Carlson's saying. I think he just thought that he was convinced that if you could get a regime change in 3 days, then at least the Strait of Hormuz wouldn't close.
Global economy needs
He was tricked there.
would end, and you could tank the global economy. You could wreck markets. And so I said all of this to him, and he said, I know. And said a few things that were so nihilistic that they led me to believe that he had no choice at all. He knew Trump is not stupid. Trump is
And then Charlie Kirk. If they had absolute control over Trump, Charlie Kirk wouldn't have died. There would be no need to get rid of him. And now that after this Iran war, yeah, I do believe that there's something more behind Charlie Kirk. Also, the video we watched the other day, that the official story behind Charlie Kirk's assassination makes about as much sense as World Trade Center 7's collapse, meaning none. So yeah, I believe that was an assassination, and if they needed to kill him, that in one way that gives a warning to Trump that it is a threat at Trump himself, and it also removes one of the key voices that Trump listened to that was against the Iran war. But it is also proof that, they were worried that Charlie Kirk his influence would be enough to prevent the Iran war. So it's not like Trump is absolutely controlled.
is light on detail, doesn't care about detail, makes stuff up. He's, of course, a compulsive braggart. All of Trump's faults are on display. But he has a very high comprehension of certain things, and one of them is risk. Like Trump understands risk. That's why he's still here at 80. And he knew these risks. He thought them through. I don't know if anyone else had presented them, but I did. And this was like 10 days before the war started. And he knew it, and he did it anyway. So I thought then, and I think now, he did it against his will. Now,
I think Tucker Carlson is very much on the same wavelength as me. Is there is a wider conspiracy. He just, in order to be sensible and reach more people, he doesn't outright say it that often.
was the mechanism by which he was forced to do this? The donors were up in his face, all the Zionist donors. Obviously, Rupert Murdoch, who, for the record, is not Jewish, was the most aggressive of all of them. And I said to Trump many times.
And that's who controls Fox News and has big influence over Trump that way, since Trump watches his network 3 hours a day.
Rupert hates you. I worked for Rupert for 15 years. I know him very well. I actually still like him. But he despises you. So if you're taking advice from people who despise you, it's probably a trap. This will wreck your administration. This will destroy your legacy. You won't be able to do anything. I mean, George W. Bush had all kinds of plans for reforming Social Security and a lot of other things. And he's remembered for the one tragic mistake that he made, the Iraq War.
Yeah, no, the Iran war is going to be far worse for Trump than the Iraq war was for Bush, because we have ostensibly won the Iraq war. We actually conquered the country. It became a little bit of a disaster afterwards, but Bush at least had his mission accomplished moment. Trump's not going to get that.
Waged on behalf of Israel. I said this to Trump. He knew that. And I said, you could easily be George W. Bush, very easily. But Iran is more than twice the size of Iraq. So like George W. Bush, 2X. You want
3 times the size.
That? But he did it anyway.
Do you think he was misled into it, tricked into it, or forced into it? Forced.
Nope. Yeah, no, I disagree on that one point, because we have that leaked audio where Trump tells the story where he was talking to UK Prime Minister, and he said to be over in 3 days. So I absolutely believe there was an element of tricking Trump. I also absolutely believe there was a huge pressure on Trump too.
I think he was forced to.
Pressured.
I mean, of course, look, they've been putting pressure on Trump, his donors, Miriam Adelson, Rupert, Benjamin Netanyahu, since the first portion of his first term. They pushed him to kill Soleimani to get out of the Iran deal. I mean, this has been coming down the tracks for more than 10 years, and I've been staring at it as it approaches, and I've been talking to Trump about it for 10 years. So it's not like out of nowhere, super clever people surrounded Trump and said, I've got an idea. You want to, enhance your legacy? You want to make America truly great again? Launch a regime change war against Iran. Like, that's not how it happened. He's been under consistent pressure, which he has withstood for a decade, and then...
I have to disagree here. The pressure was not there to the degree it was recently. Like Syria collapse. December 2024. I have to mention this. As long as Syria hasn't collapsed, the war on Iran is secondary concern. Like Israel, United States, CIA, their concern is wiping out this country that is against U.S. interests, the Assad regime. Once the Assad regime falls, then Israel and CIA's attention can be turned to Iran, and that's what happened. It's not an accident that it was half a year after Syrian government fell that the 12-day war last year happened, and Israel bombed Iran. It's because it was Iran's turn. But during Trump's first term, Syria hadn't fallen yet. I don't think there was a serious push to go to war with Iran with Syria and Assad regime in place. That an extra element of risk. It's also overthrowing the Syrian government was taking resources that weren't available for the Iraq situation. That was the focus of CIA and Mossad efforts, getting rid of Assad. And if you don't have all of CIA and Mossad's attention focused on Iran, it's not a good idea to start a war with Iran. So I do believe that the amount of pressure Trump was under to attack Iran was, in his first term, was nowhere near what it was in his second term. And Syria fell.
And at the end of February, he flipped 180 degrees and did this thing. So, yes, I mean, look, I was in Washington for the inauguration. I was with Trump at the inauguration. I went to church with him that morning. And the very first visitor to the White House was Benjamin Netanyahu. Very first. And that was the first of, I think, 8 trips. 8. I think. That may be 7, but I think it's 8 to Washington in less than a year and a half. So this was already going. Like, they had already...
8 trips. He wasn't making 8 trips or trips at this frequency prior to Syria falling. It's just once Syria fell, now the focus was on Iran, and you need to get Trump on board to the Project Iran. And so you had Netanyahu making trip after trip after trip to the United States to get Trump on board.
This was already planned out by the inauguration. I mean, think about it. Mike Waltz was the national security advisor, the first national security advisor. Obviously, Mark.
It was planned out even before that. If the bullet at Butler had hit its target, Nikki Haley would have been the Republican, and she would have run on the platform of getting revenge against Iran for assassinating Trump. So attacking Iran was on the agenda for no matter who the president was. And Kamala Harris, yeah, if it'd been her, yeah, she would have attacked Iran too. This is a multi-year project going after Iran.
Marco Rubio was the Secretary of State and now the acting or official national security advisor. John Ratcliffe was CIA director. Like from the very first day of the transition, and I was at the first meeting in November, the first Wednesday in November after the election, those spots were occupied by people, to my shock, who wanted war with Iran. So in retro, and I didn't fully understand it. I was really stunned that after that whole campaign in which Trump said again and again, including standing right next to me on stage, no more forever wars, no more pointless wars in the Middle East. We're going to actually do something about our country. We're going to turn our attention and our money to your country.
Yeah, he said that. Asmongold sometimes points to Trump saying Iran cannot have a nuke, which he did say that, but more than that, he said a lot more than that, that no more forever wars. And I can tell you why I know that is because when he's saying Iran can't have a nuke, that's in front of Jewish crowds or pro-Israel crowds, he says it. And he was in front of ordinary people a lot more than that. And so he said the other line that ordinary people want to hear, which is no new wars, far more often.
Concerns, we're going to make this a better country. We're going to make America great again. After all of that, he would put Ratcliffe and Marco and Walz, like all of whom I like personally, but that's not the point. The point is these guys are ideologically committed and paid and have been their whole careers to support a regime change war with Iran. And they had the national security posts. It was like mind-boggling to me. And I didn't understand it. Now I do understand it. The fix was in. So I wish I had understood that earlier, but I didn't. Yeah. So basically, as of November 5th or 6th or whatever the date was, that Wednesday, we were on track for a war with Iran. That means that for the preceding whatever period, Trump was on board with it too and lying about it. I mean, this is all becoming clear to me with some distance. I didn't have enough distance from Trump to really see this clearly. And I like Trump. I've always liked Trump, like as a person. So that makes it even harder to see it. But no, I think it goes back to at least Butler. And by the way, the second the Butler shooting happened, all these people who were not Trump supporters became public Trump supporters. Now, at the time, I thought, well, they just admire his bravery in the face of gunfire, which he displayed. I just want to be clear about that.
Yes,
the guy did get shot in the air. That's real. It wasn't a blood packet. That was absolutely real. He behaved in this incredibly manly way that I admire. I talked to him that night, and he had his wits about him, and he was calm. I admired that. I still admire that. So, like, that's all real. But then you have to think, like, I don't know, something about that moment was the pivot.
The pivot, yes. Like I said, the plan was for the bullet to hit Trump. And Nikki Haley was still hanging on in the Republican primaries long after she had any chance of winning. And there's articles about it at the time. Nikki Haley. I have no idea how to spell it. I'm going to... Haley. There. Nikki Haley. Why is she still in primary? News. Yeah, there were articles back at that time about why Nikki Haley was still in it when all the other candidates had dropped out. Once it was obvious that, Nikki Haley can't win the 2024 primary, but she can expose Trump weaknesses. But the point of this article is she was hanging into the primary long after it made any sense that she could win. The reason for that is the Butler. Bullet goes in Trump head. She gets the Republican nomination. By default, she's the last person in the Republican primary. And this was also before, Butler happened before Trump chose a vice president. So there was no obvious successor. So they could have coronated her as the Republican candidate. The Butler assassination, would have been blamed on Iran. and Nikki Haley would have run on the platform of avenging Trump and attacking Iran. And that was the plan going into Butler. When the Butler assassination failed, Plan B became use Trump to attack Iran. And that's why all these people came out supporting Trump after the Butler assassination, is because all the pro-attack Iran crowd that didn't support him before is because Nikki Haley, that plan failed. And so Plan B was to go along with Trump as and use him to attack Iran.
So I'm in the belief that after the war went so badly, he was planning a short war, and which is just crazy to me. And then once the Gulf got struck, once the Strait of Hormuz got struck, once he saw Iran's capabilities to keep firing missiles day after day, he realized it was a mistake.
And Trump got tricked into this war. The biggest reason is because there was no plan. If Trump had honestly believed that this war would be more than 3 days, he would have had the assets in place to do the blockade day one. That's the biggest proof of all. For the first month and a half, it was all about Trump moving assets, moving like Marines, different ships into the region that weren't there before, because now he needed them, because it was a long war. So that's why Trump was tricked. He's tricked, because he would have had a plan for the Strait of Hormuz if he hadn't been tricked. He would have had the assets in place for a blockade. So he was pressured, but he was also tricked.
And he started to pivot. He started preparing to walk away, trying to get an MOU, and even distancing himself from Israel. Some people call me naive thinking that, but I've been very optimistic since even before the ceasefire. As soon as he started making the...
Yes, we just watched you earlier. You actually got fooled by Trump's latest announcement that a deal is about to be done today. Again, Mario, you're just too optimistic.
Those tweets about wiping out civilization. I'm like, well, seems he wants an off-ramp. I don't expect Trump to really destroy the energy infrastructure of Iran and the Gulf. But then I see what's happening yesterday and today, that we're back into, Trump talking about firing at... I think Wall Street Journal reported that Trump wants to attack Iran on a daily basis. That's no longer a ceasefire. Do you think Trump is trying to walk away right now, or he's in a completely different mindset and he wants Cargill and he wants this to continue?
Well, I want to be clear. I haven't spoken to Trump since the day or two before the war began at the end of February. So I don't, Have
you tried to reach out?
I've not. No, I'm not. I don't hate Trump, but I'm, this is the worst thing that any president has ever done. From the perspective of American interest, this reduces American.
I actually agree that attacking Iran was the worst mistake any president has ever done. Of course, within the last 100 years, I'm not an expert at what foolish decisions presidents did before that. But in the last 100 years, I think it's by far the worst mistake for a president. It's a mistake that single-handedly is going to bring down the Trump presidency, regardless of anything else. And he was tricked into it, I'm positive. Also pressured, sure.
In power and our standard of living more profoundly than any single decision any president's ever made. So, at some point as an American, I just don't support it. And no, I'm not going to call him. Not because I hate him, but because I'm
not sure he would take your call. And that's why he probably isn't trying to call.
I'm so sad about this, and I so strongly disapprove of it. So, but I'm only saying that because I just want to be clear. I don't know what Trump's thinking because I haven't talked to him, but I do know him well, and I've talked to him a lot over many years, and I agree with your analysis. I think Trump convinced himself he went into his happy place, which he does, and he convinced himself this could be like Venezuela, and he could get it over with.
Venezuela. If he hadn't had that huge success in Venezuela, this Iran war might not have happened. I don't think they would have been able to trick him into this 3-day war thing if he hadn't had that huge success in Venezuela.
Quickly, at minimal cost, and be greeted as a liberator or whatever here and in Iran. And when it didn't happen, he was angry at Israel. I absolutely agree with you. I think he sent Marco Rubio out over to the Congress to blame Israel, which he did. It's the first thing. It was really, literally one of the very first public statements the administration made within 2 or 3 days of the war commencing was that we followed Israel into this. I don't think Marco would have said that without authorization. I just don't believe it. That's such a heavy-duty thing to say. It's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, among other things. It's also a fact. But I don't think he would have said that unless it was mirroring what Trump was saying in private. Okay, so that's one. So I do think he's always disliked Netanyahu. Always. I think everyone dislikes Netanyahu personally. I think Mrs.
I think probably that's true too.
Netanyahu dislikes Netanyahu more than anybody. So I mean, like, disliking Netanyahu is a kind of universal, it's a universal blood type. But I think that that's intensified, and I think he feels trapped. So
yes, he is trapped, absolutely trapped from day one of this war, and he's trapped with Netanyahu because he needs to pretend this war is a victory. And that means getting along with Netanyahu, because how can you be mad at the person who got you into this war that you're winning so hard?
Yes, and Trump has this very unattractive but recognizable quality where he blames other people for his own failures. So I do think he's blaming the Israelis. I'm sure he's mad at Mark Levin or all the other buffoons, Mark T.
Behind the scenes, sure. Publicly, he's not recognizing the Iran war as a failure, so he can't blame anyone publicly.
And all these other low IQ creatures around him affirming his bad instincts. I'm sure he's blaming all of them. I don't know that, but I know him. I'm sure he's blaming JD, or whatever. He's a blamer. But fundamentally, he can't get out of it because of the geography of the region. And if there's one thing that I've always noticed about American policymakers is they don't look at maps. And they have no sense, especially now that we're all living in a digital world, they have no sense of physical reality. And, Iran's place on the map, occupying the majority of the shoreline along the strait, gives it power that's pretty hard to do anything about. No matter how many $120 billion aircraft carriers you have, you can't move Iran, which is right across the water from Oman. It's there. So Iran is an economic power more than anything. And we just didn't recognize that because, again, people are way too up in their own heads with their own theories and everything's on a screen. But just look at a map. Iran it doesn't matter whether they have nukes or not. They are physically on this choke point at the eastern end of a fifth of the world's oil supply. So it's a powerful country no matter what you say, no matter what you do.
It's not just a choke point. The actual oil infrastructure that produces the oil is all along the coast and in the water here, all within range of Iranian drones. And they have tens of thousands of the type of drones that have this range here. So they can easily destroy every bit of oil infrastructure in the Gulf if they would want to. Of course, they won't do that if we don't hit their oil, but if Israel decides to just go in and bomb Iranian oil, then all this goes up in flames too.
Iran is powerful now. It'll be powerful in a year. It'll be powerful in 100 years. As long as people use petroleum products, hydrocarbons, Iran will be powerful. So anyway, Trump realized all that, I think, within a day or two. And everything since has been him kind of speaking his frustration out loud. The problem is that, when you're the president, a wartime president, as he now describes himself, it kind of matters what you say in public. Trump has promised since March 23rd, 38 separate times that we were on the cusp of a deal with Iran. I checked yesterday, 38 separate times.
Yes. And today was the 38th, or the 39th, and Mario believed it.
And of course, there's no deal, and there won't be until the United States feels such profound economic pain that it has no choice but to make concessions that would have been unthinkable in February.
Wow. Tucker's on the exact same wavelength as I am. Yes, this gets solved in August, once that economic pain hits, and nothing is going to solve it before then.
For example, allowing continued control over the strait. Oman and Iran will share control of the strait. That was not true in February. It's going to be true probably for the rest of our lives. And there's really nothing we can do about it. So he has to accept that, and it's hard to accept. Now, will Israel accept it? Will Israel, at the end, whoever's leading the country, whether it's Netanyahu or the next guy, be able to look at his population and say, we're going to have to share the region with another power center that's not going away, nukes or not? And I don't know if they can. I don't know if
they won't want to. They won't agree to it. They will be forced to. Because, yes, Israel has a lot of influence over the United States, but the rest of the world combined has more influence over the United States than Israel. And once the oil shock truly hits in August, the rest of the world is going to be pressuring Trump to sign the deal with Iran, the deal that Israel hates. And I can tell you, the rest of the world has more influence than Israel. Israel isn't stronger than the rest of the world combined. Sorry.
Emotionally, they can. They've talked themselves into such a state, such a grandiose state. In Israel, I know a lot of people in Israel, and every time I talk to them, they tell me the same thing. Is everyone here thinks we run the world. And those are kind of like the sentiments you have right before you blow up your life. In a man, that's called hubris. I'm so powerful.
That hubris has been fueled by the media for decades. It's part of the dollar hegemony, our power projection in the world. So our media portrays us as invincible. Look at every movie out of Hollywood, which, U.S. is invincible. It's not an accident. It's the image we project to the world. Of course, that image is less and less reality as the years pass because the U.S. military is in decline. Because we outsourced our industrial base to China. And you need an industrial base to have an advanced military, to make warships, to make planes, to make missiles. And we don't have one anymore.
You know, yeah, I've got 3 girlfriends and my wife doesn't know, but like great men deserve a harem. Like this is how men think when they're in this state of hubris. I mean, I'm 57. I've seen a lot of it, but it's also how countries think, how people think collectively. And Israel is in that state. And it's not because it's Jewish or Israel. It's like, this is how people are. All people are capable of this. The Israelis, the Malaysians, us, everybody. And they're in this state. And it is, in effect, a self-destructive state because pride goeth before the fall. You know, it's like... So I feel sorry for everyone involved, including, I mean, obviously I think the government of Israel is disgusting and they're genocidal, and I hope they're brought to account, and I hope the people who've committed genocide and murder of children are punished for it. And like, I'm not endorsing Israel, obviously, but as a human being, I do feel sorry for the Israelis because they're about to find out the hard way that no, they're not a superpower. They're the tiny little country in the Levant.
I agree with this. That's exactly how I feel about Israel. It's the U.S. support for them isn't infinite and isn't endless. And once it's gone, all they will have left is all decades of grudges that they've earned from everyone in the Middle East. And without the military power to fend off all the people that have grudges against them. And they're going to need some wild diplomacy to survive in that environment, and some huge capitulations. And Israel's border is definitely going to be redrawn at the very least. They're going to have to give up a huge amount of land to survive, if they manage to.
Of 9 million people who are committing grotesque crimes, and you can never get away with those forever, and they're not going to get away with them forever. They'll be punished for this, big time. And so I feel bad for them, because they don't know that yet.
When you say they'll find out, you mean Trump will change that relationship? Because we're seeing a bit of a power struggle, at least in...
No, it's not even Trump. It's just look at popular opinion around the world and the United States. That eventually, we are still in democracy in name, and the will of the people in some form does manifest itself in the government. And no amount of AIPAC money is going to be able to counteract the majority of Americans turning against Israel. It's the days of endless support for Israel are over. It's just a matter of time. It's despite whatever Trump does. And then Israel is on its own.
In the media, like the Axios call between Trump and Netanyahu.
Yeah, I mean, I think for whatever reason, Israel has complete control over Trump. And
still
through
now.
its proxies. Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, we shifted, I'm not guessing about this, we shifted missile defense from our actual allies in the Gulf, our most faithful allies in the world, the allies from which we receive the most benefit, and that would be the GCC, the Gulf states. We shifted missile defense from them, that would be defending Doha and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Riyadh. We shifted it to Israel. And they know that. They're very aware. Trust me, they're very aware of that. So in the middle of the war, we did this. They have nothing to do with this. They're just bystanders, and they're getting destroyed. Israel started this war. And so you would think, well, they can defend themselves. They want a war, go ahead and have a war. Good luck.
That's the interceptor shortage that is hitting everywhere because of both Ukraine and the Iran war. That's more evidence of it. And yes, they did shift missiles from the rest of the Middle East to Iran. But it wasn't just the rest of the Middle East. They also shifted missile defense from Taiwan and Japan and South Korea over to Israel. Israel's influence over Trump administration, yes, it's deep and profound. I don't believe it's absolute, but it is deep and profound.
But we shifted our missile defense from our actual allies to Israel. So that's the clearest possible illustration of who's in charge. Israel's in charge. They control Trump. Trump does not have sovereignty. But the arc of justice is long, and there is justice in this world. If you commit crimes, you will be punished for them, period. That is always true. And life, for most of us, is this whole process of denying that.
Yeah, it's mostly true. Some people escape their karma, like Bush Sr., who was definitely involved with the Kennedy assassination and Iran-Contra and a whole bunch of, I'm sure the Epstein crowd too. And he lived out and died of natural causes. So some people managed to escape their karma, but those alive today, yeah, they're not escaping. Unless they're already at the end of their natural life, they're not escaping.
But it doesn't make it any less true. So I always feel sorry for the criminal. Not because I'm a liberal, I'm not, but because I'm a human being, and I know that there's weeping and gnashing of teeth at the end. You know, the more crimes you commit, the greater your suffering. And Israel's committed a lot of crimes. And so I know I'm often called an anti-Semite or an Israel hater. I'm neither one of those things. I'm just a person who believes in justice and decency and hates the murder of innocents. They've murdered innocents. They'll be punished for it. Sorry.
Yeah. So what do you make of the act?
And they've stolen land, which is Stealing land is also terrible. Evicting people from the land they've lived in and taking it, it's also a crime.
Axios call then. So it seemed pretty, at least to me, it seemed pretty obvious there was something happening. It wasn't all for show. The attack by Iran on Israel. Yeah, even when Iran attacked Israel, the US did not intercept Iranian missiles. I think that's the first time that happens as well. Trump made it clear to Netanyahu the US would not be involved. So maybe I'm being hopeful, but it seems maybe Trump, to save himself politically or just because he's upset, he's changing that relationship in some way.
I mean, that's certainly the hope if you're an American, not because you hate Israel or Bibi or anything like that, but just because this is really destroying America and you want America to win. Those are my feelings. I'm just skeptical. Yeah, of course, Trump despises Netanyahu. He feels tricked by Netanyahu. He feels used by Netanyahu. And not just Netanyahu, but there are a lot of people who work on Netanyahu's behalf, putative American citizens who are working for Netanyahu, loyal to Netanyahu and not to Trump or the United States. And I think Trump's mad at all of them because he's in this spot. And as I said, he's blaming them. But the question is not, is he mad? Does he understand that he got tricked or led into a trap? Yeah, he does understand that, I think.
But it's too late. It doesn't matter. After getting into the trap, it doesn't matter if you understand you've been trapped. You're still fucked.
The question is, what does he do about it? And really, you could end this tomorrow. So Iran, to its great credit, in my opinion, I'm not pro-Iran, but I certainly agree with this, has tied a ceasefire to a ceasefire in Lebanon, the country from which you come. One of the prettiest countries in the world, a country that's done nothing to anybody. It's really been a victim of its own proximity to Israel for the past 75 years, and it's been destroyed by Israel.
It has the unfortunate geography of being not only right next to Israel, but being within the greater Israel that Netanyahu wants and Zionists want. It's not a good place to be.
Or as an effect of Israel's actions. And it's being destroyed again. And they're bombing, as you well know, they're bombing not just southern Lebanon near the border with Israel, but they're bombing Beirut, probably the prettiest city in the world. And they're destroying it and killing people who did nothing wrong. And Iran is really the only country in the world that's trying to do something about that. So we're not having a ceasefire until Israel stops bombing Lebanon. Well, Netanyahu has just absolutely flat out refused. And to the extent that he's tried to pull back from Lebanon, he's been attacked because, newsflash, Netanyahu is not the craziest person in Israel, not even close. He is also subject to political forces within his own country. He's a moderate, actually, within the spectrum of Israeli politics, just like Putin is in Russia. If you think Putin is the most dangerous anti-Western guy in Russia, you know nothing about Russia. So anyway, Bibi is under tremendous pressure to keep the bombing campaign going. And the only person who can actually stop it is Trump. And he could call him tomorrow and say...
But it's not just a bombing campaign. You're going to need to get Israel out of Lebanon. I don't think you're going to get a permanent solution to this Iran war as long as you have Israeli troops in Lebanon planning to annex territory. So just getting the bomb to stop, that's like the first step. But to have lasting peace, you need Israel out of Lebanon.
That's it. You're getting no missile defense. You're not getting another dollar. I will veto any funding for Israel. We're pulling out all of our military support. No more intelligence for you. You have no more American military backstop if you drop one more bomb or send one more missile into Lebanon. He could do that. And that's what it would look like to change the relationship. Not leaking nonsense to some reporter at Axios, some Israeli reporter at Axios. No, but actually facts on the ground. We're changing the nature of the relationship, which is to say no more weapons for you. He could do that in about 4 minutes. And he hasn't. And until he does, color me skeptical.
Oh, man. So do you think, the war will continue? Or do you think he may walk away? Oh, man.
I do think it'll continue because Iran, first of all, keep in mind that this...
Yeah, I think it will continue. We both think it will continue, at least till August.
Cichlid.
What's my take on Zionism? I think it's a dangerous form of extremism, a Jewish extremism. And it's caused all types of chaos in the Middle East. And, I'm very against the Netanyahu Greater Israel Zionism. The hunger Israeli has for land, just seizing land in Lebanon, in Syria, in Lebanon, the constantly building new settlements. It's a disaster. We'll never have peace as long as that hunger for land isn't reined in.
This war began with the United States and Israel murdering the leader of Shia Islam.
Nice to have you here, Cichlid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a Christian, pretty enthusiastic Christian, actually, not a Muslim at all. I reject Islam, I'll just say. But I don't think, as a Christian, that we should be killing other people's religious leaders, especially when they're in their 80s and are non-combatants. Sorry. I don't think we should be assassinating people. And most Americans felt
Agreed.
that way about 20 minutes ago. The U.S. government did not openly assassinate anybody. We did assassinate people, but we lied about it because we knew it was shameful. This war began with the public assassination of the leader of a world religion. So when you start off like that, you don't leave a lot of room for compromise or reasonable settlements, okay? Which was insane. And by the way, Israel pushed that. Netanyahu pushed that on Trump, convinced Trump. And our IC, our 18 intel agencies, disagreed and said, I don't think that's going to work. But Bibi prevailed and convinced Trump to do this. So once you start with that, you can imagine this is not going to be settled in an armistice or however it's settled, except on pretty tough terms from Iran, okay? And those terms will include control over the strait or shared control with Oman, which is across the water. They will include keeping its missile program, and they will include keeping the current government intact. So you're going to have, inevitably, an Iran with more power and more money, despite whatever destruction we effected.
And nukes, if they don't already have them.
Against their civilian infrastructure, which is a war crime, I'll remind you. But whatever, no matter how many desal plants or water reservoirs or power grid installations we blow up, Iran will be more powerful at the end than it was at the beginning of this conflict. So that's just really hard to accept. And powerful like in real terms, not conceptually powerful, not ideologically powerful or more coherent or all the sort of hard to measure ways we describe power, but like there's more money coming in to the treasury every year. They have greater respect from their trading partners. They have a closer relationship with China, a closer relationship with Russia, with Pakistan, with South Korea, with all the countries that need these commodities. And there are fewer sanctions, fewer American sanctions on Iranian oil, or the US dollar has degraded to such a point that it doesn't matter whether they're dollar-based sanctions because people are not transacting in dollars. They're using other currencies to buy and sell oil, so sanctions have no effect. So like some or all of those things will be true at the end. And like, can Trump accept that? Can American citizens accept that? Like that's
not today, not yet.
Really hard to accept. And can the Israelis accept it? And the answer in all cases right now is no, they can't.
Exactly. So that's what I've been saying. Right now, there isn't a political will to accept this reality.
Take a lot of suffering for us to get there.
Exactly. The suffering is the solution to ending this. And that happens in August. It begins in July, but it happens in August.
That's my view.
I get mocked a lot for being the optimist. I'm hoping there's a post that just came in from Trump now. I'll read it to you a few seconds ago. And again, I'm going to be...
Does Tucker watch my stream?
Very hopeful after I read this post. I just read it briefly while you're speaking. Based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level.
Honestly, Tucker is the first commentator that I've listened to that has made the point that I've been making for months now. The pain, the economic pain from the oil shock is the solution to this. When the reserves around the world run dry and there's actual oil shortages, that's when we start to get near the end of this war. Without that pain, there will be no deal.
Of Iranian leadership and approved. I have, as President of the United States of America,
Tucker is smart.
Cancelled the scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran this evening. Discussions and final points have been, in both concept and great detail, approved by all parties involved, including the US, Israel, Saudi, UAE, Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, and others. The naval blockade will remain in full force and effect until this transaction is finalized. Time and place of the signing to be announced shortly. Donald J. Trump. Now, we've seen posts like this before.
Yes, how many times? 38 times? It's 39 times now?
I'm in the belief that I think Trump is the only person that could really stand up to Israel. I've been proven wrong time and time again. I'm hoping this is it. What's your interpretation of this post?
I think he can stand up to Israel once we get into the pain and panic phase of this oil shock. Then with the support of the rest of the world, when the entire rest of the world is putting pressure not only on Trump, but on Israel. Israel will also come under enormous pressure because nations recognizing that Israel's biggest obstacle to this deal, both will be pressured to the point where they'll be forced to accept the terms Tucker outlined.
Well, as noted, that's the 39th post that has made the same claim, and the first 38 have proven false. So, but like you, I am fundamentally an optimist. I wake up in a cheerful mood every single morning, almost without fail. So I want to believe that. I think I've always thought a lot of Trump. I literally campaigned for him. I wasn't getting paid. I did it because I wanted to. So, I want to believe that. I just can't overstate, however, that Iran's...
I don't believe it because Israel's not getting out of Lebanon today. Trump is not prepared to force Israel out of Lebanon. So, there won't be a deal.
Fundamental demands, the ones from which they will not move, that are not negotiable, are going to be really hard to accept because there's just no way around the fact that they're going to control one of the most important pieces of real estate on the planet. And, you know, I can accept that.
I've said from the beginning, all Iran needs to do is hold the Strait of Hormuz closed 6 months and they win. They've held it closed 3.5 months. They're not going to cave now. They're going to wait next 2 months and get the deal they want.
I don't want it, but there's nothing we can do about it. So I can accept it, but, you know, I'm not a politician and I'm not the Israeli. I mean, the Israelis have really talked themselves into this headspace that's not rational at all. And I've talked, just this week, I've talked to a friend of mine in Israel who is rational. He's very pro-Israel. He lives in Israel. He was born there. He's in his, you know, he's not against Israel or against the Jews. He's an Israeli Jew. But he's like, man, you know, everyone here thinks we're going to win. We're going to control the entire Middle East. No one can stand in our way. And I get it. Like, countries
Asmongold wavelength. Just not aware of the reality.
want to believe that about themselves, but they're going to discover that, no, actually, not only is Iran still there, it's more powerful. Like, I don't know what the reaction to that's going to be. And by the way, Israel's dangerous. Like, they kill people, a lot of people, and they assassinate people. They brag about assassinating people. So
They do.
you know, I don't know
Journalists too. Leaders. Everyone.
what's going to happen, but it's harder than it looks. I guess I would just say that.
But would Israel, you know, without the impunity that was provided by the US, that umbrella, that security umbrella, Israel may just have to adapt with reality, may have to adapt with living with Hezbollah up north on their borders. Iran,
Sure.
to be clear, Iran has to also adapt with it as well.
Without U.S. support, it's not just going to be adapt to current reality. That current reality will shift. All this land from Gaza, like, look at the size of Israel over the years. It's going to go back decades in terms of the amount of land under Israel's control. This in Syria gone. It's going to shrink, and that is what's necessary for Israel to survive after it loses U.S. support. It's not the current borders. It's going to be the first time you're going to see Israel borders shrinking severely, and all those settlements are gone.
Of these statements coming out of Iran, they're still saying the same thing. Yeah, Israel shouldn't exist as a state. We're going to wipe out the Zionist regime. And I think both countries, I made a post a few days ago, both countries need to understand the other will exist. And that's a new reality. And I think this will happen.
strongly agree.
No, sorry, but that's not the way the world works, Mario. All these crimes that Israel's been committed all these years, people don't forget them. The land stolen, people don't forget that. Once it loses U.S. support, it's going to have to, if it wants to survive and it's able to negotiate something with its neighbors, it's going to require huge concessions and the huge and shrinkage of its border. And if they're not willing to do that, then Israel might actually cease to exist, in that they'll be attacked. Israel without U.S. support is not a guaranteed thing to continue existing.
Agree.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the problem for Israel, a huge part of the problem, is the fact that it's been on welfare since the day it was born. And people who are on
Yes.
welfare from the day of birth tend to be kind of rotten people with unrealistic expectations of life. This is true for poor people on welfare. It's true
Yep.
for rich people on welfare, otherwise known as trust funds. Like, they're not reality-based people. I happen to know an awful lot of them. And they're all kind of the same. And so it's recognizable. Israel's behavior is recognizable. They've never had to get along with their neighbors because the United States would just swoop in and backstop, would co-sign for whatever crazy thing they wanted to do. Oh, you want to kill the entire population of a region? Okay, we're on board with that. Normal countries
What happened to Christians in Syria?
don't have that luxury. And so just like if you don't like your neighbor, and it's very common for people not to like their next door neighbor, you have to figure out ways to deal with it because you can't just go shoot him. And those ways tend to make you a better person. They make you more flexible. They make you more empathetic. That's what growing is putting yourself in other people's position and thinking about, well, what does it feel like to be my neighbor? And once you start thinking that way, then that's the basis for a long-term peace. Israel's never had to do that. They consider the Arabs animals. They're subhuman. They say this all the time. I'm not guessing about this. They say it even in English. They say it. These people are animals. They're fundamentally flawed. They're not fully human. And we can't live with them anywhere near us. Well, okay, that's obviously like Nazi talk, but it's also unrealistic
Yes.
talk. Because what are you going to do about 1.9 million people in Gaza? No one wants them.
And I could tell you, would you want to live next to people that believe that about you, that believe you're animals and they don't want to live anywhere near you, that have these types of views? That they don't want to. I wouldn't want to live next to people like that either. The Israelis, I mean.
You can't actually move them anywhere. You can machine gun them all, which they're not going to do. Or you can just like get real about the fact that you have to live next to these people. And I think Israel, like most countries, would have already gone through that process decades ago.
Yeah, it would
if
have.
it weren't for American welfare. But they would be better people and more reasonable people if we hadn't enabled their worst human instincts for generations. So I think it'll be a really good thing for.
It's not only the welfare enabling this, their views. Those views have actually been encouraged by parts of the United States, by the U.S. deep state, because Israel is a power base of the United States that they use for power projection in the region, like taking out Libya, just demolishing Somalia, Iraq, Iran, Syria. It's how the United States has dollarized a huge part of this region is with Israeli support. And to get Israel to get along with overthrowing Syria, for example, you need people in Israel that believe in the greater Israel. You need to encourage the greater Israel agenda to get Mossad to do operations and genocide Christians in Syria and dollarize the country. So, yes, not only the welfare that encourages this type of arrogance on the part of Israel, but also the United States deep state has been working to put people like Netanyahu in power in Israel, people who believe in greater Israel, because it serves the U.S. agenda. It's not just Mossad that arms ISIS in Syria. It was CIA too. It was something the United States wanted. We had U.S. troops safeguarding the oil in Syria. It was just as much a U.S. project as it was Israel. And in order to get Israel to commit all this aggression against all its neighbors, you need Zionists.
For Israel to be on its own, I hope that happens very, very soon. I don't want Israel to be destroyed. But the longer this goes, I would say, the higher the risk that Israel is like literally destroyed by its neighbors, because it's the most hated country in the world for good reason. And they don't care. They ascribe all disagreement to anti-Semitism, which they think is like just totally unreasonable. Why are people anti-Semitic? Well, it's because they are. And it's this ancient hatred. It's a mind virus. It's a brain disease. Okay, maybe. But people are mad about Gaza. They're mad about the crimes that you committed in Gaza, which are real crimes. And they can't accept that. And so the sooner that they're forced to accept that, apologize for it, atone for it, put some people on trial for doing it, we can move past it. Truth and reconciliation. That's what we need.
Like, I got asked once, not me specifically, but I think they were referring to you. They're like, we don't know why people are so obsessed with Israel. And then I thought about it for a couple of days.
Not only giving up land, but what Tucker just outlined. People in Israel will need to be put on trial and put in jail for the crimes they committed in Lebanon, Gaza. I think that giving up land and putting people on trial, those will be the two requirements for Israel to survive after it loses U.S. support.
I'm sick of talking about Israel. I want to talk about AI. I want to talk about what's happening in China, the Russia-Ukraine war. But when you have things like this war in Iran, you have things like the Section 226 of the 224 of the National Defense Authorization Act. When I see things like this, and I'm not even American, as an Australian, as an ally of the US, when I see things like this, I'm like, man, how hijacked is the system? How flawed is the system itself?
Yeah, but how about you just back off, stop taking my money, return to me my sovereignty, and I'll stop thinking and talking about it. I've never had any interest in talking about Israel at all. And so whatever. I mean, but you've got a very complicated psychology that has built up over generations. I was born in 1969, 2 years after the Six-Day War, and a lot of this was already in place then. So this is long-standing. These are long-standing patterns of behavior that are diseased. They're super unhealthy. They're terrible for the United States. They're terrible for Israel. And it's going to take a while to unwind all of this. But the unwinding has begun. There's no question about it. I mean, if you had said, as someone who has worked in the media his entire life for 35 years, probably most of my friends in the media are Jewish. If you'd called me an anti-Semite 5 years ago, I can't imagine something worse, really, than to be called an anti-Semite. I mean, it just was awful. Now I've been slandered unfairly as an anti-Semite for so long. It's never been true. It's never going to be true. I will never be an anti-Semite because I just disagree with it, anti-Semitism. But now I just don't care because I don't see it as a real charge. I see it as a way to get critics of the state of Israel to be quiet, and I'm not going to be quiet. And I think a lot of people have reached that point. So if that no longer works, if you can't humiliate people into silence while you continue to commit your crimes, if you fail to convince them that criticizing murder is worse than murder, that's really the case they're making. It's worse to criticize the genocide in Gaza than it is to commit the genocide in Gaza. And they've convinced a lot of people of this over
That's wild and insane.
many years. But if people sort of wake up from the spell, they're like, wait, you're the murderer, not me. You're using my money to murder children. You're the criminal. So many people have realized that, including me, that you've reached the end, really, of one form of your control. So what's left? Well, you can use money and violence. That's kind of all you have left. And neither one of those things works long-term either. So I do think we're entering a more healthy stage, where Israel can behave more like a normal country and we can treat them more like a normal country. And we can all stop talking about Israel. And I can't wait till that day happens, till that comes. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not only about Israel. It's all these different special interest groups behind the scenes that pull the president, and you can see it live happening. Pull the presidents in all these different directions: big oil, the military-industrial complex. And
Yep.
I saw that tweet by Seb Gorka. I ignored it initially, and then I started seeing the impact of it, where he's working with some agency to hurt the reputation. They've mentioned you, Candace, who was Hodge twins, a bunch of others. I was surprised to see my name there as well. And then I started thinking, do you ever worry that, and I asked you this before we started, do you ever worry that you could be silenced? Not only Israel, I'm talking about all these different groups that want to influence the American system for their own interests. You're one of the most, probably the loudest voice against such influences. Does that worry you at all?
You might be Charlie Kirk, is what he's asking. Bullet to the throat.
No, I mean, I see it as I see it as inevitable. I mean, of course, I'm not.
What's inevitable?
My being silenced one way or the other. I'm not saying that in a self-pitying way. I'm hardly a martyr. I have the happiest life of anyone I know, but I so I don't feel.
Yeah, that is admirable. I personally, back in 2011, gave up blogging and publishing videos on YouTube because at the time I didn't feel I could accomplish anything, and I figured it would be dangerous to continue. Tucker Carlson is on the same wavelength as me, and he knows that it's dangerous.
Feel bad about it, but I see it as inevitable. I mean, I'm not a billionaire. I'm not even, despite my reputation, very rich. I've spent almost no time trying to accumulate money. Not that interested, and I don't have a military. I don't hold office. I'm like some random podcaster in his barn in an impoverished zip code. Like, I don't have actual power. So, and I know that some things I say are highly annoying to people with actual power. So of course, like, I felt this way at Fox News. I sort of in the back of my head, I always knew I would get fired. And for a while, I convinced myself I've got the highest rated show in the history of cable. Like, there's no way they can fire me. But I didn't really believe it.
Yeah.
You know, I knew that they would ultimately fire me. It came a little sooner than I thought, but I always knew it would come. And I think it'll come one way or the other to me now because it's just inevitable. It's going to rain at some point. Like, we know that. And so and I'm not whining it.
This is Mario thinking, maybe they might come for me too. Because, it's the Tucker, in terms of hammering nails, Tucker's a bigger nail, but once he's gone, Asmongold, you, Mario, well, I'm way too small to draw any attention right now.
About that at all, and I don't feel bad about it. I instead feel that it's just important that while I can, I'm going to say exactly what I think is true with the ever-present knowledge that I'm often wrong. I could be wrong because I'm not God. And that's the number one thing I know about myself is I'm not God. But I sincerely believe what I say. I think it's obvious that I sincerely believe.
But there's one part of this is that they are losing control. Like, look at any things that happened like decades ago. People like Tucker would already be dead. It happened a lot fast. Remember that video on Hollywood that we watched? The guy who was looking into high-ranking officials with underage girls, and he loses both his hands, and they find him in an aqueduct. Yep, it was just... but their ability to do this, it's the same thing. The whole edifice is crumbling. The ability to go after and silence people is a fraction of what it once was.
What I say, and I hope it is, and I'm going to say it until I can't, period. So that's kind of all you can do. I always try and tell my children this. Young people really live in the future because they're worried about stuff, and I get it, but they're constantly thinking about what's going to happen, and I'm always telling them, I don't think it's penetrated, that we have no idea what's going to happen, actually. The future is not real because it hasn't happened yet.
I have an idea what's going to happen. It's inevitable. So at least... sometime dollars collapse and the collapse of the U.S. financial system. That's the one thing that's set in stone. The only question is, when will it really happen?
And I know,
and my 5-10 years is my timetable.
From living a while, that almost everything you imagine that's going to happen to you is the opposite of what actually happens. You know what I mean? Like, I never thought I would be a journalist, for example. I never thought I would be on camera, ever. It never occurred to me. I had a whole different life path plan. Most of us did. So I just don't worry about the future very much because I know from firsthand experience that I'm bad at figuring out what it's going to consist of. All I can control is today, and I'm just going to keep talking. In fact, for the last couple of months, I've been thinking this a lot, and I've accepted every single interview request I've received, every single one. And I've never heard of some of these people. You know, I don't go on the internet that much, so I'm like, I don't know these people. I know who you are, but I mean, I've
Should I try to interview Tucker Carlson?
accepted interview requests from like completely random people. Why? You know, I do have other things I could be doing because I feel like I'm going to say everything I think as often as I can until I can't anymore. That's what I've decided I'm going to do.
Oh, I didn't expect.
Yeah, he is actually expecting the same thing to happen to him that happened to Charlie Kirk. That is amazing and sad, and it reinforces to me that he more than any other commentator, I think, understand how the world really works. And I might actually try to contact him, reach out to him, at least have a conversation. I don't know about interview, but a conversation. I think there's a lot of interesting things I could share with him. But I'm worried that anyone listening to this will have the same idea than me, and he's going to be inundated by requests after this interview.
Expect that answer. My next question is: are you considering running for office? What are your political ambitions? What is your plan? But then when you tell me that,
You're talking to someone who doesn't expect to survive until the next presidential election, you know, Mario. So if he's still there, I think he might try to run, but we'll see.
you've accepted the fact that you will be silenced eventually, or you at least understand that this is a possibility.
Well, we're all going to be silenced eventually by death, which is like. But if I could give one piece of advice that no one ever takes to younger people, it's this: brood about death every day. It's the basis of cheerfulness and lightness. Everybody pretends that they're not going to die, and the people who face it directly are liberated from anxiety about it because you know that that's going to happen. So then the question is not, am I going to die? Oh, you're going to die. The question is, how do you live? And no one ever believes me. No one ever takes this advice, but I say it anyway because I know that it's true. So yeah, no, we're all going to be silenced. I have no plans to run for office. That's like a nightmare scenario for me. But I do plan to do whatever.
That doesn't mean he won't. He has no plans for it. And why would you make plans for it when you're not sure you're going to be alive for the next presidential election? I think he'd make a great president, though.
I can to change the system, which Trump has proven his main contribution has been to prove that the system kind of can't be changed.
But then why not? Why not run? Why not run? If you want to change the system, why can't you try what you thought Trump would do?
I just can't get my head around it. I mean, because it's, I've always disliked politicians. I never even voted very often. I mean, it's, I guess, a public record you can check, but I mean, I've been a very spotty voter, not because I don't believe in voting.
They can't get us all, you're saying, Proton Stan. And that is truth. I mean, it's one thing that Asmund Gold and Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk when he was alive is when you have voices like that, you don't have to worry about anyone coming after you because you're so low priority compared to them. So, yeah. And, yeah. So I do hope nothing happens to Tucker Carlson. I do hope they're losing. They're too busy with managing their Iran situation to go after people right now, I think.
Though increasingly I do wonder, but because I just feel like it's too intimate. I don't want to endorse any politician. I mean, I voted for Trump not the first time, but the last time I voted for him, and I campaigned with him. Like I was all in, not because I was getting rich.
That wasn't a mistake. Kamala Harris would have been worse. I guarantee you it. We'd be in this exact same Iran war, possibly even sooner. I told you, Syria ended December 2024. After that, Iran was the plan. And there was a 12-day war. I think that would have just been the Iran war with Kamala Harris. It would have just, 6 months into her term, she would have just started this Iran war for good. We would have joined Israel all-out war against Iran.
Rich from it, I wasn't, but because I really believed this was our last chance. And anyway, my whole life, I've just been kind of like contemptuous of politicians. We don't have them to our home. We don't talk about politics in my house. I'm not bragging, but like we talk about things that really matter, I think, in my house. At dinner, we have long meals every night, and we do not talk about politics because it's like disgusting. That's how I feel about it. I've always felt that way. And I grew up in D.C. mostly, so I feel that. So the idea of me being a politician, it's like, ugh. I mean, I guess it's better than OnlyFans, but not by much. That's how and definitely I'm not going to get paid to go on OnlyFans at 57, sorry.
Would you, I'll press you again. Would you at least consider it? Is it something you discussed with Buck maybe?
No, I do discuss everything with Uncle Buck, who is a family hero. But no, I mean, it would just be a nightmare. And I have a huge family and a really close family, and I don't want, I feel like if I ever tried to run for office and somebody showed up in my town.
Also, he's worried about getting killed. Announcing that he plans to run for president in 2028 increases that exponentially, that someone might target him. It makes him a target. So I definitely would not be broadcasting that, especially if I'm worried about someone silencing me. I would not give them extra reasons to come after me.
And stuck a microphone in the face of one of my relatives. I mean, I could see myself, doing something for which I would be gravely punished. I mean, I don't think I could handle that. I've been in the media my whole life. I have such a low opinion of the media. I'm looking what happened. So I'm in Maine, and Graham Plattner.
He's the same wavelength as me about the media. Yes. You don't hate them enough. Asmongold really hasn't earned the right to say those words yet.
who I've never met, is running for Senate in Maine. He's a liberal Democrat. I'm not voting for Graham Plattner. However, I'm watching what they're doing to this guy, and I can't believe it. You know, attacking him like he's a Nazi when he's not a Nazi, claiming he had a Nazi tattoo when he did not have a Nazi tattoo, claiming that he's got this freaky sex life, which maybe he does, but is it freakier than your average U.S. senator? No, I know that for a fact. Like the slander, and it's not my job to defend Graham Plattner, with whom I disagree on a lot of things, but they hate him and they're trying to destroy him because of his position on Israel. That's just a fact, okay? And everyone's lying about it. And these people who have no basis for judging anyone else, I know that, are running around telling you that Graham Plattner's like a child molesting Nazi. It's so outrageous that it, you know, and I'm not going to, it triggers me so much that I'm like, I'm going to send a check to Graham Plattner. Well, no, because I don't, you know, I don't send checks to politicians and I don't agree with Graham Plattner on a lot. But that is so disgusting, what is happening. It's so dishonest, is what I'm saying. It's so dishonest. Rather than just say, Graham Plattner is not going to be a reliable vote for funding Israel, therefore we're opposing him, which is the truth.
Yeah.
They're pretending that they're worried that he's a Nazi when they're not worried that he's a Nazi. By the way, they're attacking him for his PTSD, which he apparently has. How did he get that? He got that because he fought in Israel's war, the Iraq War, which we went into at the behest of Israel. Okay, that's a fact. I was there. I was physically there. I was in Washington. I knew the president. I covered the war in Iraq, and I refuse to let history that I saw personally be rewritten by people who are liars. We went into that war at the behest of Israel. Graham Plattner is a victim of that war, and now they're attacking him. Advocates for Israel are attacking the guy who fought their war for being damaged by it. I can't deal with it. So I watched that happen, and I'm like, this system is so dishonest that I don't even want to look at it because it like poisons my soul. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Yeah. Yeah, look what happened to Massey as well. That was really sad to see. Such a nice guy.
Massey-
Such a nice guy.
That I'm so angry about. That, I think, an absolute betrayal by Trump. It doesn't matter what type of pressure he's on. He didn't have to turn against Massey. No. Yeah, that was an unforgivable betrayal by Trump.
I knew him well. I knew his wife well. Ron, his first wife. I know his second wife. He's like probably the only sitting member of Congress I would allow to babysit my children. And I mean,
He's incredible.
He's such a decent man. He believes in self-reliance, which was an American value. It was also an Australian value.
If Congress was filled entirely by people like Massey, just think of it. Think of it. Think of that world. United States might actually be great again.
Gone now, along with Anglo culture. It's gone. But it was a bedrock foundational value in this country. Like, take care of your own family. He lives in an off-grid house that he made.
Now they're teaching children in school, hate your own family because they're white, and take care of the families of other people, the foreigners that come in, and it's insane.
He believes in agriculture and decency. His 4 children love him. They're all 4 married.
And that's not even a joke. I can't tell you how many stories I hear about people going to college and deciding they're non-binary or gay or trans, and then having complete fallout with their parents. They're teaching children to hate their parents.
And productive citizens, one served in the military. Like, he is the guy you want your son to grow up to be. And then because he criticizes AIPAC, now they're saying he's like a liberal sex fiend. It's like, I can't deal with that. It's too dishonest. I just can't stand it. Yeah. And the worst people in the world calling the best people in the world criminals because they're calling out the crimes of the government. I mean, you know, there ought to be a system in place in which telling the truth, being virtuous, if not rewarded, it's at least not penalized. But at this stage, it is penalized. The honest people are penalized. The virtuous people are penalized. The sincere Christians are penalized first. All the J6 defendants and prisoners, they were like, if you look carefully, most of them are like not only good people, they were like the reason you love America. People like that with their pocket constitutions and they're paying their taxes despite not having any money. And then, you know, like these disgusting, people like Bill Ackman. How did Bill Ackman get all this money? He's dumb. How do you live in a world where people like Bill Ackman get all the rewards and people like the J6 defendants or Thomas Massey are the criminals? Like, it's too unfair for me. I can't stand it. So would I want to be part of something like that?
Yeah, it's so infuriating. I used to be angry all the time because of stuff like this.
Oh, no. No. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Have you spoken?
Deep down, I'm still angry, and under the right conditions, that anger boils up, and you hear me really start yelling.
To the voices that are pressuring you, the ones you criticize, do you speak to them behind the scenes? Do they tell you, Tucker, why are you saying this? Or what can we do for you to be less critical? Anything at all? There must be something.
No, I've certainly tried. Believe it or not, I really don't like conflict. I mean, I know it sounds like it can't be true, but it actually is true. And I really didn't like.
I don't like conflict either, but there's stuff that's just so horrific that if you don't actually actively fight it, or like the UK beheading is an incident. Someone on a UK street trying to saw someone's head off. Yeah, that person, he needs death penalty. I can't be peaceful with stuff like that.
Being called an anti-Semite when this whole drama first started around the Iran war. I just didn't want to war with Iran. Didn't hate Israel. Don't hate Jews. Never gonna hate Jews. Sorry. And so when this first started, I was trying to figure out, like, why is everyone calling me an anti-Semite? And so, you know, I've been doing this a long time and I know a lot of people. And so I realized, oh, this is being run out of the Israeli government, actually, which it is. And now that's all been documented. Brad Parscale at Salem Media. And like, this is a very orchestrated campaign, like all public relations efforts. It's orchestrated, right? And that's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. I lived around this my whole life. So anyway, I tried to call Netanyahu, who I know. And I tried like 10 times to call him and go see him, not for an interview, let's just have a conversation. He wouldn't see me, which was bizarre since I know him and he's called me before and like, whatever, he wouldn't see me. So I wind up calling a guy I do know called Danny Danon, who's a longtime Israeli political figure who's now the Israeli ambassador to the UN. And I call him and I say, you know, this is crazy. Well, please stop this, you know, hassling my family, trying to get relatives of mine fired from their jobs, which they have done a lot, which is outrageous. And calling me an anti-Semite. I'm not, as you well know, an anti-Semite, not that you care, but I'm not. And I just don't want this war.
Why do you stop?
And so he goes in public, and I would never say that I had that.
I think actually I'm going to end this here. We covered all the real serious subjects. I'm sure now the questions are getting to less important subjects. I encourage anyone to watch the last half hour of this. It's an amazing interview. But there were some heavy topics in here, like the fact that Tucker is aware that he might, same thing might happen to him that happened to Charlie Kirk. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye.